Hello everyone and welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly fascinating and honestly a huge structural shift happening right now in the world of artificial intelligence. We're going to take our time and carefully examine exactly how large language models handle memory and context. The paper we're looking at is called GenericAgent, a token-efficient, self-evolving LLM agent via contextual information density maximization. Yeah, it's a mouthful. It comes to us from the researchers over at Fudan University, and let me tell you, it completely challenges a deeply entrenched assumption about how we actually scale AI systems.
Okay, let's dive into this. Is more context always better for AI? Right now, if you look around, the AI industry is completely obsessed with scale. Everyone is racing to build models with these massive, ever-expanding context windows. We're talking feeding them hundreds of thousands, sometimes literally millions of tokens. The widely accepted myth out there is that if you just give the AI an endless memory, it's going to figure everything out. But this paper firmly pushes back on that. It argues that an agent's performance is actually bounded by context quality, not just sheer length.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the context window myth. Second, a trilemma deep dive. Third, maximizing context information density. Fourth, we'll explore the 4 pillars of GenericAgent. And finally, we'll wrap up with the 30K token advantage.
Let's start with Section 1, the context window myth.
So, researchers have actually identified 3 compounding failure modes when an AI interacts over really long horizons. First up is positional bias. This essentially means that critical evidence hidden right in the middle of a massive context window simply gets buried. It just gets ignored. Second, irrelevant content doesn't just sit there passively, it actively degrades the AI's reasoning capabilities. And third, the effective context length, meaning, the actual zone where the AI doesn't hallucinate, is roughly an entire order of magnitude below the nominal window size that developers are advertising. Think of it like a messy desk. If you need one specific document, throwing more and more papers onto that desk doesn't help you find it, right? Actually, scratch that, it actively buries the important documents. In the AI world, throwing more context at the problem can actually hurt rather than help.
Moving right along to Section 2, the trilemma deep dive.
So the crucial point here is this fundamental tension. On one side, we have completeness. This is the absolute need for all decision-critical information to be present so the AI can actually do its job. But on the exact opposite side, we have conciseness, the absolute necessity that everything irrelevant must be excluded so the AI's reasoning doesn't degrade. The researchers frame this as a structural trilemma, with naturalness acting as sort of a secondary constraint, but I really want us to focus on completeness versus conciseness. These two forces are actively fighting each other. And this isn't just some budget problem. Even if you had an unbounded, infinite context window, this tension persists. Including more data just to be complete inherently dilutes your conciseness. And conversely, compressing data to be concise, well, you risk losing completeness. It is a profound structural trap.
All right, Section 3, maximizing context information density.
Context information density. This right here is the single guiding principle of the entire paper. It's the idea that long horizon performance is determined entirely by how much decision-relevant information is maintained within a finite context budget. Let that sink in for a second. You aren't trying to remember everything. You are trying to perfectly curate exactly what matters right in this moment. The agent's performance is bounded by density and quality, never by sheer length. It's a total paradigm shift.
Which brings us to Section 4, the 4 pillars of GenericAgent.
Let's methodically list out the 4 tightly coupled mechanisms that actually make up GenericAgent. We've got a minimal atomic toolset, a hierarchical on-demand memory, a self-evolution mechanism, and a context truncation and compression layer. Let's take our time and break down exactly how these build a cohesive, highly efficient system.
First up, the minimal atomic tools. By keeping the interface incredibly simple, the system radically reduces all that scaffolding overhead in the prompt. Second, and honestly this one is massive, the hierarchical on-demand memory. Remember our messy desk analogy from earlier? Well, this memory system acts like a perfectly organized filing cabinet. It organizes all the accumulated knowledge into layered tiers, but here's the kicker. By default, it replaces the full text with just a compact index. Third, the self-evolution mechanism. This turns verified past trajectories into reusable operational knowledge. Think of them like standard operating procedures or code. And fourth, the compression layer actively truncates information to maintain that pristine density we talked about during long tasks.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how elegantly it solves that completeness versus conciseness trilemma we were discussing earlier.
The active context only holds a minimal high-level index. It is not the knowledge itself. It's just a really compact representation that the knowledge exists. And that is completely sufficient. Once the agent is aware that certain information is out there via this index, it can just leverage its own tools to retrieve it deeply, purely on demand. So, completeness is preserved because the agent can access absolutely anything it needs, but nothing is heavily loaded up front, and conciseness is flawlessly maintained because the index itself is negligibly small. Pretty brilliant, right?
We also absolutely cannot overlook the power of the self-evolution mechanism. Usually, any useful experience gained from tasks is just lost across episodes. The AI is forced to figure things out from scratch over and over again. But GenericAgent consolidates verified execution paths. It actively turns them into reusable standard operating procedures. This continuously raises the density ceiling over time. Future tasks get a much stronger starting point without replaying all that lengthy, token-heavy exploration. The AI genuinely learns and evolves to become more efficient with every run.
Let's move to our final section, Section 5, the 30K token advantage. 30,000. I just want to pause for a second and let the sheer efficiency of this metric sink in. While other systems out there are boasting about massive million token context windows, GenericAgent maintains a highly disciplined working context budget of roughly 30,000 tokens. That's it.
To put that into perspective, that 30,000 token budget is roughly 6 times smaller than comparable frameworks. 6 times smaller. Yet by rigorously maximizing context information density, GenericAgent consistently outperforms leading agent systems across the board. Whether we're talking about task completion, tool use efficiency, memory effectiveness, or even web browsing, this system achieves superior results while using significantly fewer tokens and interactions. It absolutely proves that a highly organized, highly dense small context will beat a massive, disorganized context every single time.
Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought. If AI performance is bounded by quality rather than length, what else are we over-engineering? GenericAgent proves that simply throwing more brute force scale at a problem, like expanding a context window infinitely, is often just a bandage for poor structural design. By slowing down and organizing information into dense, hierarchical, self-evolving systems, we can achieve far better results with a fraction of the resources. It really makes you eager to rethink the entire future of AI scaling, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer today, and keep questioning those industry assumptions.